Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chicago Justice Show. I'm your host, Tracy Siska. I'm also the executive director of the Chicago Justice Project. We work on transparency and accountability in the justice system, local justice systems. We're primarily focused in Chicago, but now we've expanded or starting to expand around the country into the District of Columbia, Dallas a little bit, and multiple cities this summer. If you want to find out more about what we do, chicagojustice.org, and you can find out everything. Look at our new site that's up and will be launched hopefully early next week. Today on the show, we're going to cover the battle of superintendents in the Sun-Times. Will the CPD need permission to go on foot pursuits? Alderman Lopez's, 15th Ward Alderman Lopez, spouting nonsense on Fox News. Lightfoot being assessed on her second anniversary and how the Adam Toledo shooting is focused more attention on that and what she's done. And honestly, I think that's a right article to write at this point. Kim Foxx not seeing the Adam Toledo video before her office went to court and gave a proffer on what was in the video. More about CPAC, GAPA, Community Commission Ordinance, and we're going to finish just with some of my feelings about the Chauvin verdict from Minneapolis, because it's just something you can't avoid at the time. So let's get to it. Our first segment today. Top cops try to clear the air after Brown rips predecessor strategies. Dedication to police reform. This is a pretty hilarious article in my perspective. If you look Brown Beck certainly has, if you look just on policing and credentials and resume, Beck's resume certainly is much better. Plus, he's already been through the consent decree process in Los Angeles. So there's really not a comparison between the two, typically. But there's like this tit for tat going on between whose ideas were better. Beck was interim, as you remember, between Eddie Johnson, who got fired for his DUI activities and drinking and probably should have never been appointed superintendent. I have an op-ed in Cranes you can look up if you want my feelings on it. But he was fired or let go. Beck was brought in from Los Angeles, actually out of retirement, because he saw the LAPD through the consent decree. I don't know if that was a good idea to bring him in, but Lightfoot did. He did a major reorganization of the department in the very short time he was here. He was here like 6 months. An unprecedented reorganization and basically an attempt to fix everything that Superintendent Gary McCarthy did with the department, or a lot of it, trying to undo all of that horribleness. Based on what he at least will tell you is what he learned in LA going through the consent decree process and what worked there. Brown came in just as the pandemic was hitting. Shortly after he came in, George Floyd protests started happening, the unrest. He undid a lot of the things that Beck had done. So we're going to go over some quotes because I think this is all pretty funny. So this is Superintendent Brown, or about Superintendent Brown. Superintendent Brown, because there's a couple articles, said his predecessor's crime-fighting strategy didn't work and defended his own decision to create city roving units, citywide teams of cops, saying they reduced violence. Okay, I will tell you right now, they have no idea if those roving units he created did any good. None. They may have. They don't know. We need an independent analysis to prove it. He has no idea. He's, of course, going to tell you they did. No matter what the numbers show, they worked. He's in office. That's what he's going to say. It's why you can't believe anything anyone in that position ever tells you. It's all bullshit. It's all PR. It's all a lie. Don't believe it. He might be right, but he doesn't know. And so he's like Ouija board. What answer gives me, do I look the best at? I've got to come in and change things because the city's going, there's all kinds of violence and crime in Chicago related to the pandemic and then George Floyd and then the unrest. I've got to do something. So I'm going to change back to an old strategy that was started under Phil Klein, that it went crazy. Those units went bad. Klein was fired. Weiss was brought in. He kind of dismantled them. Then they kind of brought him back. Then McCarthy kind of brought him back. And then he reorganized the department. Then Eddie Johnson just kept everything going the way they were. Then Beck came in and reorganized everything, got rid of all the special units, and tried to push all the resources he could to districts. And Brown then came back and reorganized the units. You'll be, for viewers of the show, you'll remember, I don't remember the officer's name, but it's a few weeks ago, we did a story on an officer who was part of that, one of those saturation teams, those summer community policing squads that he put together. Originally 100, then I think it went up to 300 officers. That officer had a horrific history of violence and abuse. When that's what happens when you organize those units. That's who's attracted to those. So I'm just gonna call bullshit on that one from Brown. Let's go to another piece of the article. He also took a shot at his predecessors. I'm reading right from the article. I walked in the door a year ago and, just to be quite frank with you, the department wasn't taking the consent decree very seriously. We had to dig ourselves out of a hole. Listen, there was no way the police department, CPD, was going to take it. I don't think that's necessarily Beck's issue. No departments do good with consent decrees. It took LA 12 years to get out from under theirs. I bet you I wouldn't be surprised if it takes Chicago 20 years. I just don't, of course, Brown has to say that, so anything he does looks better compared to what Beck left. Once again, I don't believe it, and I do got to say this tit for tat, just taking the quotes, is shitty journalism. But anyways, it gives us something to talk about. Beck in reply, he said Brown's reconfiguration is more militaristic, shock and awe style of policing. And here's the important part, and he's right. It tends to alienate the community. Yeah, that's going to help. Because what you want coming in after everything that's happened in Laquan McDonald is more policing that is going to alienate the community. Way to go, Brown. Now, that's if Beck is right. But the tit for tat, we're never going to know. We're just getting juicy things to talk about. Last one from Brown. I just try not to do stuff that doesn't work. The structure wasn't working. How do you know? What were you... I mean, because if the journalist was actually doing his job, and I'm not sure if I wrote this down, was that a Frank Main? Why do I think that was a Frank Main article? Let's look at this. And it is a Fran Spielman. Of course, it's a Fran Spielman article. This is Fran. Juicy, salacious quotes, no facts. Facts are what reporters do. Fran's not a reporter. She likes causing controversy. You made her whole career on causing controversy. So let's go. So anyways, let me just say that if these two, let's end this. If these two, if there was a real reporter doing this story, you'd get facts about whether or not the crime has gone down or up and what's going to change the numbers and whether something's working or not. He had no way to evaluate what was working. It was an unprecedented time. Here is an unprecedented time in Chicago. So there's no way to know what exactly was going to work or what wasn't going to work. Okay, we're going to go on to our second segment. It's got a 2-minute video of a report from Fox 32 about foot chases.
No one should die as a result of a foot chase.
That was the mayor yesterday. Tonight, word that Chicago police may soon need permission from supervisors before chasing a suspect on foot.
And the issue's gained new urgency since the fatal shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo.
Our political editor Mike Flannery has more on what City Hall is considering.
The Adam Toledo case prompted a personal injury lawyer in Pilsen today to call for reform.
This is a tragedy that could have and should have been prevented had the police department had clear procedures governing the use of lethal force against our children during foot chases.
Rewriting police policy on all foot chases is a hot topic at City Hall. Alderman Brian Hopkins says the mayor's office told him officers could soon be required before undertaking a foot chase to do what they're now required before a vehicle chase: get permission from higher ups.
Of course, that raises obvious problems in the time that it would take to do that. The person you're supposed to be chasing is actually long gone, and the point would be moot then. We're seeing more vehicles flee from police officers because word has gotten out that they're probably not going to get permission to chase you.
The mayor acknowledged that dilemma yesterday.
I don't want people out there who are dangerous to think, well, if I just run, then I'm safe and I can continue to wreak havoc. We can't live in that world either.
Alderman Hopkins says it's past time to rewrite Chicago's currently vague rules.
I'm sure the police officers themselves would agree with me. The more guidance we can give them, the more comfortable they'll feel when they have to make these high-stakes decisions in the blink of an eye.
The mayor is promising to produce new foot chase rules, quote, soon. I'm political editor Mike Flannery.
Okay, so let's talk about this video for a minute. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, officers do not need permission to start a car pursuit. That's not how it works. That's just not right. They need permission to keep it going. They do not need permission to initiate a car chase. Right? Especially if the people have committed certain offenses, right? The more serious they get, the more likely they are to continue it. We could argue that, but that's the way it goes. That's how it is in policy, right now. So this idea that, let's talk about the foot pursuits. The reporting on this makes it seem like it's going to be just like car chases, and that they need to get clearance before they start. Could you imagine you're running away from you're in the police car, or you're running either way, and the police sit and wait for a boss, supervisor, to authorize even the initiation of a chase? That's the end of the chase. If they're sitting there a minute or two or more, gone. You're not going to catch that car or person running. Most likely, they're gone. So even if they do put pursuit issues in, policies in, what is going to happen is they're going to say, outside of some very serious crimes, murder, rape, aggravated batteries that, the active, like on the scene, shootings on the scene, right? You're there when it happens or just after. All the other foot pursuits are probably going to stop. That would be my bet. That's most likely what's going to happen. Now, in the cases where there are serious crimes, like, by the way, Adam Toledo, you're responding to a shooting, they shot at a car, people are calling 911 about the active shots, you got confirmation on ShotSpotter, shitty technology, but you have it. Guess what? You're going to start that chase when you see someone with a gun. You're going to start it. And you may have to radio in, or your partner may have to radio in on a chase on an offender on a shooting, and whether or not to continue it. There may be rules around if you lose sight of the suspect going around corners or in and out through backyards or in and out of buildings or around buildings, and you can't keep sight of them to stop it. And I think some of that stuff we'd all agree with would be righteous reforms to put in for both the offender's safety and the officer safety. But all of this would not have changed, in my opinion, the Adam Toledo foot pursuit. It was like 35 seconds in an alley. Yes, it's 2:30 in the morning, but he kept his eyes on him the entire time. He never lost sight of them. They didn't go through areas where he couldn't see them. He didn't go around buildings. It was straight down an alley. I don't think, even no matter what reforms Lightfoot puts in, this is smoke and mirrors. The reforms need to be put in, but it isn't going to affect the Toledo case. This is something that happens in Chicago all the time. Something happens, they put in reforms that are never going to deal with, or they attempt to put in reforms that are never going to deal with the actual problem that we saw on the video or within the incident. So, you back these reforms, that's great, they need to happen, but don't think for any reason this is going to stop an Adam Toledo situation from happening, because it won't. It's a gun, there's a shooting, it happened too quickly, it was like 40 seconds. It's not going to happen. He radios back while he's running. You think the supervisor's going to get back on the scene and tell him to stop in that 30 seconds? He may not even get on the radio and tell them within the first 30 seconds. He certainly isn't going to get it back, do the reporting, and get the report back from the supervisor to stop it in the first 30 seconds after he saw the guy the entire time, or the offender. It would be great to think it will happen. It's not smoke and mirrors. Now, I want to talk about Brandon Hopkins. I think he's the second ward alderman, some of the comments. He's got no evidence, but it's a police union talking point, and it's bullshit that offenders have realized that police stop car chases, and they have reformed car chases because they've all too often wiped out individuals or families, or the offenders have. But they have no real evidence that offenders are changing their behavior to run when they're in a car more from cops because they realize at some point they may stop it. Now, does it make sense that might happen? Sure. But prove it. He's got none. He's got innuendo. He's got talking points from the Fraternal Order of Police. That's it. Zero evidence. But that's nothing new for a politician in Chicago. That's how criminal justice reform and crapola is done here. No evidence, talking points from a politician who doesn't have any clue what he's talking about. I don't think, and let's just talk about this for another 10 seconds related to foot pursuits. If you have a gun, would you have run more or less or equal prior for a new policy going in? If you have a gun and you're caught at 2:30 in the morning like Adam Toledo was with the gun in your hand in that alley, you're running either way. Whether there's reform in it or not, you're running, period. It'd be nice to think that these things are impacted by new policies, but it's an exaggeration most of the time. And if we're going to have politicians spouting off about it, new evidence to support it would be nice. Okay, we're going to go to our next clip here. It runs around 2 minutes. And this is Alderman Lopez, 15th Ward Alderman, talking about how the title of for our podcast viewers, the title of this piece is Chicago Mayor Throws Police Under Bus, Fails to Call Out Gang Violence. Democratic official, Democratic at crapola. This guy is so far right. He's probably further right of John Cass, which shows you where he's at, but he's also full of crapola to the maximum. But here's your piece. He's talking to Fox News.
Yeah, it is heart-wrenching knowing that young lady died under the hail of 50 bullets being sprayed, for lack of a better term, sprayed into her car. And this happened Sunday. And just Sunday, I was talking with another Fox host, Tucker Carlson, about the 4-year anniversary of a 12-year-old, Canary Gentry, who was gunned down under the hail of gunfire playing basketball. And yet in the city of Chicago, while our children are dying on the streets, we see politicians trying to protect narratives that enable the criminals as opposed to fighting to find the truth and justice of the situation and to bring those perpetrators before the courts.
And nothing's improving there. There were 3,500 people killed under Obama and Biden in Chicago. This past weekend alone, 27 people shot, 5 of them fatally shot. Why don't we ever hear these names? Why isn't where are the activists now? Where's Al Sharpton? Why aren't they in that city doing something about this?
Well, you know, right now the activists and everyone are protesting the police shooting of a 13-year-old gang recruit because that is the narrative that they want to project. They're not interested in fighting for those truly innocent victims who are just trying to do what your child and so many other children are trying to do in my city and across the country. They're not fighting for those children who just deserve a chance to grow up. They're fighting for those causes that perpetrate that narrative that somehow police are bad, government is awful, and that we need more money for more programs to do absolutely nothing. And we see the results of that in the city of Chicago on a daily basis. We see that now with the state's attorney interfering with the work of a long-standing assistant state's attorney who's well-respected and trying to bring truth to power with regards to that shooting. And we see it with the narrative that our mayor is playing time and again, where she's throwing the police under the bus and has yet to call out gangs in the city of Chicago.
Okay, so let's get something straight here that you're going to see. This is a common problem in Chicago and throughout the system, throughout the country, about criminal justice. When is it okay for a police officer in an unjustified manner to shoot someone and kill them? What kind of background does the suspect or person who shot have to have Where's the line that it's okay for a police officer without just cause to shoot and murder someone? I bring this up because you get this from the police department. You will get this in just crime reporters in the Daily Beat. You'll get it from everyone. And you got it from Lopez here, which was 13-year-old gang recruit. Okay. I don't care if he says 13-year-old gang leader. I don't care if he says 13-year-old rapist. I don't care if he says 13-year-old mass murderer. The only question that matters about the Adam Toledo shooting, the only thing, is whether or not the shooting was justified. Not the labels society is going to place on that life that was taken. Either the shooting was justified or it wasn't. The cop doesn't get less or more punishment about whether the person is deemed good by society or bad. Oh, well, the person had drugs in their system, like George Floyd. Yeah, but it played no role in the incident. So in other words, it doesn't matter. It was brought up because it wanted to signal to you and to jurors and to the media that is a life that you should not care about the fact that a police officer took. He's a black male on drugs. Kill him. We can kill him. It's okay if we went over our bounds. It's okay. It's only a black life. It's only a black male. He does drugs. He's horrible. This is what Lopez is trying to allude to. He's a 13-year-old gang recruit. You should not care about his life. You should not care whether the police officer, rightly or wrongly, shot him and took his life. That's the only reason you mention gang recruit. That's it. Either all lives matter, as I'm sure he's going to say, right? Every life matters. The only thing that matters when you're looking at the incident is not who the victim is or how much we like them or dislike them or society puts labels on them. None of those matter. Did the police officer follow the guidelines or didn't he or she? That's it. It's all that matters. Lopez is trying to signal to you that you are not supposed to care about Adam Toledo's life. Because gang members and gang member recruits don't deserve your sympathy, and it's okay for police to shoot them, even if it's out of guidelines. That's it. I don't get it. I don't get a lot of what he's doing. I don't see how being very far right of Lightfoot's actual policies gets you elected to anything. I think he is sadly, incredibly miscalculated the electorate in Chicago. Lightfoot, I think, has serious challenges to winning coming in 2 years. So 2023. I don't know. Right now, she continues on as fast. I'm not sure how she gets elected. She's losing the left and is going to continue to lose the left massively. And Lopez being very far right of her is not going to get votes to win. It just ain't going to happen. If he thinks he's going to do a John Cass, Paul Vallis type thing and win from the very far right, and call himself a Democrat, he's dreaming. Having John Cass and Paul Vallis in your stable of people who applaud what you do is a sign that you are definitely you're doing the wrong thing. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back talking about Lightfoot and how the Adam Toledo shooting and other things put a spotlight on her and her administration almost 2 years into her term. I'll be back in 1 minute. Join a group of engaged and committed individuals advocating for transparency and accountability in the local justice system around the country. Get engaged through crowdsourced research projects, digital activism, public policy advocacy, or become a social media ambassador. Our criminal justice system will not reform itself. Communities must demand it. Transparency can be the fuel for justice our local communities need to combat the weaponizing of data by our justice system. Transformation of our justice system cannot occur until we know exactly what they are doing and who they are doing it to. Get involved today. CJP Nation. Okay, we're back. So I don't like much or most of or almost all of anything that Fran Spielman writes. I question whether it's journalism. She looks for sensationalized quotes and milks them for everything she can get. Never makes the phone calls she should. Never digs for data. Why other people in the journalist world in Chicago all fawn over her, I am mystified. But I think she does kind of sort of write a decent article here. I think it's something that needs to be done by the media. And title the article, let me show you the article, and for our podcast audience, Adam Toledo police shooting video puts a spotlight not only on the police, but also on Lightfoot, our mayor. It does. And as we're approaching 2 years, I really want people to think deep and hard now. One was a worldwide pandemic year, so give her a little break there. But what reforms has the head of the Police Accountability Task Force, the head of the Chicago Police Board, and the chief administrator, the head of OPS, Office of Professional Standards, back in the 90s for a couple years, what has she brought in? What reform are we seeing? We're seeing her law department fight like crazy to keep the Anjanette Young video sealed and under wraps and not out in the public. That sounds about right. That sounds on par with Ramen Daly. Nothing new there. She promised when she was a candidate to pass the Community Commission, CPAC and GAPA. One of those two in the first 100 days. I think she preferred GAPA when she was a candidate. We're approaching 720, and yes, 395 of them, 400 have been under the worldwide pandemic, but there was a plenty of chance to pass that ordinance. Then she's also poo-pooing the Anjanette Young ordinance, trying to kill that and say, oh, we just need to reform police department policy. That's all we need. It isn't all we need. She knows it. I don't think she's got a reform to hang her hat on in the criminal justice wise. And for the people that voted for her, I would tell you right now that you'd have seen much, much greater police reform under Mayor Preckwinkle than we've seen under Mayor Lightfoot in the first 2 years. There's no doubt about it. Real quickly, though, I want to just ding Fran Spielman for doing the same crap that Crime and Review blog and the crime reporters do, all these just bad journalism. In this March, shootings were up 70% over the same period a year ago. Homicides were up 50%. The number of carjackings more than doubled. Comparing crime numbers in a major city from a COVID time to a non-COVID time, not good. They have to stop doing it, but they can't because it's just so easy. And for those, I'm sure it took like eight whole minutes for Fran to look up those numbers. So, I mean, a phone article for a major newspaper, or a smaller newspaper in a larger city in the country. I wouldn't call the Sun-Times a major newspaper. Okay, we're going to get on to our next segment. And for Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx acknowledges she did not see the video of Adam Toledo before shooting or read errant statement before court hearing. Now, I think, to her credit, Kim Foxx, she's come out and fallen on her sword and taken responsibility. Because her name's on the door. But I think there's more to this article that people aren't paying attention to. So, what this all revolves around is the gentleman whose name I don't remember at this time was arrested with Adam Toledo in that alley. Well, arrested in the alley that Adam Toledo was later shot dead a minute later. He was originally charged with less serious crime and then within a week or two after the shooting, was arrested with it and charged with more serious crime, the gun possession. I think shooting at the car that they missed. And in his arraignment on court, the state's attorney says to the judge, "We've seen the video, and Adam Toledo was shot with the gun in his hand." Now, Foxx admits that she had not seen that video yet. And she had not seen the proffer, what the officer was going to say happened on that video, before it was given. And they're dinging her for that. My question is, why did she have to see it? Was the gun in his hand or wasn't he? And do you only check proffers and offers of proof from your prosecutors when they're heater cases? Because it certainly seems like the media is saying, oh, you should have checked this one because it's important. But your prosecutors can go ahead and lie or misstate facts in videos anytime they want in court all day, every day, as long as it's not a heater one. That one you got to check. This may have been how it was done under Anita Alvarez. Both are bad. They're bad. Now, to give Kim Foxx a little bit of leeway here, it's hard to change a culture in any organization, let alone a criminal justice one. Trying to change a prosecutor's office from being wholly focused on the harshest penalties ever and being as racist and complicit in police crimes as possible. This was the state's attorney's office pre-Kim Foxx. Look at Anita Alvarez. Look at Anita Alvarez and not prosecuting the Daley nephew, the Vanekos. But you can go even back further than that under Dick Devine and Daley with John Burge. John Burge's reign of terror from the early 70s, like 72 or 73, through to 1993 would have not been possible, those 20 years, if the prosecutors in the cases that John Burge ended up witnessing and testifying and torturing people into confessions would have never happened if it were not for complicit prosecutors from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. The office is supposed to be independent. It certainly seems most of the time they're not. And this is the same thing you get with the Jesse Smollett and the approval of 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct against him. An absolute appalling joke. But just further evidence that the agency, the State Attorney's Office, is so embedded with the police and that way of thinking that they can't operate independently. And this is just more truth of it. It's just more truth, and it's sad, but it is true. Okay. We're going to move quickly here to our next segment, which is an article from CBS News about, or CBS Chicago, I should say. We're not asking, we're demanding. Advocates advance call. I don't know what that means, advancing. What do they mean, advancing? Call for civilian oversight group over police. COPA, police board, and other bodies. Okay. Can someone explain to me what advancing their call means? I don't know. If they didn't have in demanding, would it be advancing? I don't know what the hell that means. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for the most part, I'm going to tell you, even if this community commission comes in and they get great oversight and they have the ability to hire and fire the superintendent, it will not change what happened in the alley with Adam Toledo. It isn't going to. Neither is Rep. LaShawn Ford's critical race theory classes and community immersion. None of that is going to change until officers are equally afraid of all people, white, black, brown, whatever, and that things aren't going to change. That foot pursuit is, like I've said before, is going to be allowed almost under any circumstances. And the only question I have in the Adam Toledo shooting, and we'll never be able to answer it, is whether that officer would have waited one more heartbeat if the kid was white. And whether or not, and I'm in favor of this community commission to some degree, even with the community commission, it isn't going to make a difference. It just isn't. I wish it would. I want it to, but it isn't going to make a difference. It's sad. So just getting back to some of the politics going on with this mayor, we have interviews from, I think last week with Tamer Abu Zaid, who is with advancing the group for CPAC. We've had Desmond Yancey on over the summer from the GAPA ordinance. They have now come together and merged their ordinances. Tamer was on there talking about the merged ordinance months ago. Desmond was on talking about solely the GAPA ordinance. Stop that vote from taking place, even on the new ordinance, and he's waiting for the mayor who says she's going to conjure up one. You know, the mayor, we were just talking a segment or two ago about who has done nothing on police reform in her first 2 years. She's going to put in a watered down one that's basically useless, and he's making sure hers gets introduced before he allows a vote on the merged CPAC and GAPA version. Why? Pure politics. This is pure Ramian and daily politics. Everyone was telling me, oh no, the chairmans, they have reign over their committees. They can call anything they want. No, they're not. He's being told what to do and he's following orders. Bottom line. Nothing new here. Pure old school machine politics. Not great. It doesn't spell anything great for Chicago. I will tell you, keep a lookout. Within 30 days from today, no, what is it, the 23rd, within about 27 days of today, we're going to be releasing an analysis of agenda items from what used to be called Police and Fire. It is now called the Public Safety Committee of the CPD. It is, it's going to be really, really, really telling. We'll let you know when that comes out. Okay, we're going to move on to our last segment for today. And we can't not do a show and not talk about the conviction of Derek Chauvin. Title of the article is from the New York Times, but you can find it pretty much anywhere. Derek Chauvin trial. Chauvin found guilty of murdering George Floyd. Okay, people. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. I apologize. But if you watch this show or listen to the podcast enough, you'll know what's coming. I am sick of hearing this is the moment. This is really the moment. This is really, really the moment. Oh my God, is this the moment? This is the moment. No, it isn't. It isn't. It isn't. It isn't. It isn't. Nothing fundamentally about how policing is done is changing. Nothing. Consent decrees are good. They're not a holy grail. We've just found out from the Biden administration that the Minneapolis Police Department is now being, they just are launching, Merrick Garland announced, the U.S. Attorney General announcing that there's going to be a pattern and practice investigation launched into the Minneapolis Police Department. That is great. Some things will improve, but it won't stop. It isn't going to stop it. It'll make it somewhat better, but bad cops are going to be bad cops. What I think the answer is strong upfront regulation from our political leaders. The HB 3653 from the Illinois General Assembly recently passed, the omnibus bill, good start. Didn't go anywhere near far enough, but it's a good start. We need to reallocate funds that normally go for police for other services. Period. We have to build those services up. You can't just magically wave a wand and have everything happen overnight. But we're not really even trying in Chicago. We're not. Chicago's history is replete with moments. I'll give you a few. John Burge's firing. The Austin 10 scandal. The busting, breakdown, exposure of the Special Operations Section that helped lead to Phil Klein, Superintendent Phil Klein, getting the axe and Jody Weiss coming in, the FBI agent. He later then reconstituted the same pretty much unit under Mobile Strike Force instead of Special Operations Section with all kinds of oversight. Blah, 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 blah. They all say that. Area 2 gun team. The ones who got off because a really bad ruling by a really politically connected judge. And he applied a civil standard to guilty or not guilty to a criminal trial. But did the prosecutors, Anita Alvarez, appeal? Of course not, because they're in on it. They're not independent of anything. They certainly weren't then. Then you have Joseph Manjanowski, looked at or labeled the most corrupt officer in the history of Chicago. Figure that one. How bad was that? And then just a couple years ago, the murder of Laquan McDonald. If any of those were the moment, like if each one of those was the moment, then the one before it, after it, would not have happened. Here we are. We have a mayor in office on Police Accountability Task Force, police board president, head of OPS, Office of Professional Standards. George Floyd happens, defunding movement really pushes, she outright rejects it. No, there's no moments. The politicians aren't listening. They're still trying to keep the people who want reform of the police department in this box that it has to be through policies and guidelines instead of front-end regulation in law, like what legislators do, right? Or using data from like 911 calls to see what kind of calls could the police not show up to in Chicago. How many of those are there? Can we build up a response that's different, that doesn't put as many armed officers on the street responding to calls that they can't possibly respond to? Well, I'm here to tell you, CJP is working on that very analysis with metadata on tens of millions of calls from the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, or OEMC, what's called Police Calls for Service. We have the data. We are going to be doing a massive analysis. And if the Lightfoot administration and the police and the prosecutors, no one's going to do it, we're going to do it. That's also coming out maybe 6-8 weeks from now. There are data-driven ways to push the defund or reallocation of resources. We're doing it. We're also doing through our Nation program. You can find more information at chicagojustice.org. Get involved. You can find out information about linking to our Nation website. We have a group that's working on researching top to bottom a CAHOOTS response. CAHOOTS is basically a crisis response system built in Eugene, Oregon. Not around a year, not around a couple years, 30 years. We're going to be putting out a policy later this summer, a policy proposal and a bunch of research on building that up and what it takes and what could be done in Chicago and around the country, actually, about doing that. The city refuses to listen. We're going to have to force them. Yeah. There's no other way. If the head of the Police Accountability Task Force, who runs as a progressive, isn't going to do anything on the subject, then no one's going to do anything on the subject, and we're going to have to make sure we force it. We're definitely going to have to make it part of the next mayoral election, like the issue, because Lightfoot doesn't seem interested, and she doesn't seem scared enough. And without either of those, we're not going to get her to move on things. So we're going to have to make her scared of it. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. We're going to be back on Monday at 5:30 Central. If you got ideas for the show, subjects you want me to cover, questions you want answered, you can email us at info@chicagojustice.org, and I will definitely make them part of the show. You can also, from any of the platforms we're streaming, you can also ask questions and put comments in for inclusion in the show live. Thank you so much. We'll see you on Monday.